Hi there, I'm Adam Pozdro, and I'm excited and honored that my class nominated me to participate in the IDSA Student Merit Awards for 2021. So today I'd like to walk you through a story of exploration and design through uncertainty. I grew up in a north suburb of Chicago called Libertyville with my mom, a painter and designer, and dad, a musician and audiovisual tech. Growing up, like most everyone else in industrial design, I was a pretty creative kid, and some of my passions included performance, STEM, and art, which led me to a summer program that I took at Northwestern, where I learned the basics of design and its potential to help people. So in the pursuit of my industrial design dreams, I left the comfort of Libertyville to attend DAAP. Through my first few years, my confidence grew, and I went from drawing simple still lifes to communicative industrial design sketches, CAD models, and photorealistic renderings. I also had the great opportunity to get out of my comfort zone again and work for some amazing companies. At Leapfrog, I learned craft and dedication. At Milwaukee Tool, brand and aesthetics. And at 11, I had my first experience in a consulting environment. Coming back from 11, I felt like I was getting a little too comfortable again in industrial design, so I decided to challenge myself by participating in Section 1, an experimental collaborative studio at DAAP. We started by observing a local sheet glass manufacturer and decided to make objects inspired by the observed material and processes. This iteration was different from all the rest that I've experienced. We were exploring more thought-provoking and discursive designs. And the final designs were completely unexpected. We made pillows that challenged the user to combat their fears of danger by breaking the sheet glass pillow and turning the hard material into a soft and comfortable one. We also made mirrors with glass overlays to distort perception. And finally, we pursued material exploration with the finished sheet glass and the waste from the manufacturing process. This culminated in a curated exhibit of home goods from the class that we brought to New York City for ICFF. After that experience, I decided to explore the world of medical design by working for Farm Product Development, a medical design consultancy. There, I was thrown out of my element yet again and worked on high-level medical systems design, including this cancer treatment system from Histosonics and innovative CGM tech. And only a month into my time at Farm, our whole world was thrown into uncertainty with COVID-19. Discouraged and uncertain yet again, I transitioned to work from home. So after the initial shock, I decided to take advantage of the remote environment and uncertainty by investing my time into my craft. I continued my co-op with Farm, started school again, worked on 2 personal projects, and was scouted to be a founding designer for a PPE startup in response to the pandemic. This project, I was inspired by my work at Farm to focus directly on the user and to create a cohesive system. This is MIX, resin pouring encapsulated. For this project, I was determined to focus on user-centered design to improve the lives of prosthetics users by assisting prosthetics technicians. I had previously done research in the field by visiting various prosthetic shops in the Cincy area and found that most prosthetics users are relying on technicians using just totally antiquated tools. By observing the process of resin prosthetic creation, I discovered a large area of concern around the mixing of resin and promoter. Through sketching and ergonomic modeling, I discovered it was possible to encapsulate the resin pouring process into just one hand tool. And as I do with every product, I created this one with full consideration given to manufacturability. This tool boasts modular details for ease of use, waste reduction, and easy cleanup, and this combined with a product system for exact measurements. And as a final touch, I decided to create the start of a brand which would show the combination of the 3 main ingredients to modernize the prosthetic tool's look. So Air 11 was again inspired by my time at Farm, where I challenged myself yet again to create a medical product for the future. So the reality is that the face of CPAP is changing, and it's time for an update. With the younger demographics of CPAP users nowadays, my goals were to give the machine an aesthetic overhaul, apply a better travel solution, and incorporate sleep tech. Through a variety of explorations, I created a new standard for CPAPs. One where a modular system allows users to detach the water tank for easy travel, integrate sleep tech and an improved UI to elevate the experience past a medical device to an overall wellness device, and with an accessory case which doubles as a compact travel solution. All this culminates into a compact and feature-rich medical product for the future, which can sit on your bedside with pride. All of that got me noticed by Canopy. But then something really unexpected happened again. During a weekend hike, I developed a little bump on my elbow, thought it was nothing, which turned into a night at the ER and a potential bursitis. And finally, a diagnosis of flesh-eating bacteria and an entire month in the hospital. So this was a really low point for me, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to continue with Canopy or school or anything else. But during this uncertain time, I decided to dedicate myself to my design work while in the hospital. Thanks to the incredible contribution of countless healthcare workers and surgeons, I'm alive today and well. I took that time in the hospital as inspiration as I continued with Canopy. From my time with healthcare workers in the hospital and Canopy's research, we observed the pain and fear of workers in this pandemic scenario, physically manifested as marks which we call the Bridge of Honor. We also saw the disposable N95s were, and still are, littering our streets and filling our hospital trash cans with no safe reuse in sight. Because of this and many other factors, we decided to focus on improving comfort on the face, reusability, sustainability, breathability, and improved communication. And through an extensive process of sketching, CAD modeling, prototyping, and finally in-house and expert testing, we arrived at Canopy to help the frontline workers and medical professionals to the highest degree possible. This system features a compliant and secure face seal for improved comfort, a replaceable patent-pending radially pleated filter core for incredible protection and increased breathability, and an all-plastic suspension system for improved weight distribution and cleanability. In addition to the product itself, I created the quick start guide and instructions for use, the packaging, and helped in solidifying the brand through web and social media assets, all of which culminated in over $290,000 of investment to date. But most importantly, Canopy's out in hospitals helping those who helped me and countless others during such an uncertain time. Moral of the story is, uncertainty is the only certain thing, and knowing that can help us succeed. Thank you.
Alrighty, hopefully you guys are seeing my screen full size. Please say something if not, but awesome. So hi there, my name is Alicia Kozlowski and I'm excited to share with you about my journey as a designer. So the first thing you need to know about me is I always wanted to be a fashion designer, and not just any fashion designer. I wanted to design wedding dresses. I was determined to create the most beautiful dresses for the most beautiful day in people's lives. And as I look back now, I can see where this desire came from. You see, in design, so often we talk about the product as our end goal, and that's what we do. We make products. But something that really drove me, though I definitely couldn't have articulated it as a kid, is that the product is about the people. The product is only there for the people who use it. The purpose of a wedding dress isn't the dress. A wedding dress on a hanger is not a purposeful product, and yet it is still so important. And so the person designing that product has to really think about the person wearing it, because even though it's just a single event, it can actually impact someone's life. As designers, it's really easy to believe that our purpose is designing products, but what we're really doing is caring for people through products. And it has taken me a long time to realize this, so I want to share with you what that journey looked like. So My love for fashion design led me to UC, where I instead joined the industrial design program because someone once told me it was easier to switch from ID to fashion than the other way around. And I thought that was some solid logic. So 5 years later, here I am, and it seems like it was the right decision. So the first project where I saw this philosophy of design as caring for people come in was completed as a semester-long studio, and the prompt, design a chair. So how do we do that and help people? Well, that's easy. We find a worthy cause. I wanted to focus on one of the most pivotal relationships we have as people and looked at the bonding process between new moms and their infants. I saw so many people express confusion and pain and isolation in this process, and so I dove in to meet their needs. It was important to not only speak with moms, but also professionals like lactation consultants to understand the emotion and science behind the process, which led to a wide exploration of sketching concepts and resulted in a chair with distinct features for them, like easy assembly, ergonomic arm and back support, slow rockers to save little fingers, and of course, material consideration for wash and wear. I had the opportunity to then build this chair and see how the fruit of intentional features and good design can create something not only useful, but delightful for the people it's made for, and care for them by meeting their needs. Which helped me realize that useful and delightful products don't actually have to be physical products at all. We bring value and impact into design from the intention behind it, and that frees us to let the solution be what is most caring rather than what we think it should be. This has been something I continue to fall back on with my senior capstone as I look at ways to design for and improve the Ohio WIC program for participants and dietitians. Getting to know the women who participate in and work for WIC has been so rewarding. I've learned to listen and exercise empathy and engage in co-creation humbly to better hear and understand who the people I'm caring for are. And so while I'm still in the process of developing an integrated system to better connect participants and dietitians, I can see the purpose in this project because through a pure motivation of seeking to care for people, I'm not only helping them through good design, but supporting an organization that serves my community. And so while both of those projects are, let's be honest, lots of sunshine and rainbows, I've learned there's more to using design as a means for truly caring for people. Out of all of the internship experiences I've been able to have during my time at UC, one of the most eye-opening and frankly challenging was my project while working for Alienware at Dell. So for those who are not familiar, Alienware is one of the top brands for high-end computer gaming equipment. They are also a big sponsor of the rising industry of collegiate esports, where people compete in team computer games. And during my internship, I was tasked with a semester-long project related to this world of gaming. So here I was with this philosophy of designing to help people and make the world a better place, and faced with an industry that, from my view, did not do that at all. And to be honest, one that I just didn't understand. But when I took a step back, I realized if I'm trying to make the world a better place, whose world? Because in my world, I am not a gamer. I did not value gaming, and I confess could even look down on people spending all of their time on games. But it's not my world. And everyone, even gamers, deserve their world to be made a little bit better. And creating a great product for them was the way to do that. And boy, was that hard and humbling. It started with really getting to know who I was designing for. I needed to get my hands dirty and be slow to speak and quick to listen. I read over 300 articles to learn the lingo and know what questions to ask. I visited universities, spoke with their esports teams, spoke with their supervisors, spoke with kids who were just in the esports facility for fun, and just listened. And when I listened, I was able to hear their hearts, their hopes and desires, hear their humanity. So I decided to generalize all of them into a single fake human for good measure. But in reality, I was able to gain a deep understanding of the struggles these individuals faced and their desire to be seen and known for their abilities. So I went through a wide range of concept iteration, ultimately choosing to develop a new system to integrate the future of collegiate esports with the future of cloud gaming in a way that would provide the features and recognition these athletes needed. And so I developed and I iterated and I refined some more because everyone deserves our utmost effort to create good design to serve them. And the result was a suite of new branded gear for the collegiate athlete to be seen for their talent and have agency over their tools, giving them the freedom to train wherever and whenever they need it to optimize their training time and give them agency to have personalization and balance in their lives. But it was bigger than just the athlete and changing their access. It was upgrading the entire system to impact the esports facility as a whole, changing the perception of these glorified computer labs into spaces where people can compete and engage. The team can be highlighted for the addition they bring to not only esports, but the university, and people can connect with others just as passionate as they are. I cannot speak to how much of a challenging process this was, but I learned to realize that it's not about making the world a better place. It's about making their world a better place, and that is inherently valuable. And so while I have a big heart towards designing for the causes I deem as really worthy, I have chosen not to head into the field of direct social design or working with nonprofits in the near future. I will be continuing my career at Priority Designs because we are called to create excellently all kinds of products for all kinds of people, not just the ones that make you feel good. And through designing excellent products, we serve the ones we create for. And so while my journey at UC ends, I'm excited to find more and better ways to care for people through my skills, through my coworkers, and just through the opportunity of serving others through product design. It may not be wedding dresses, but I think my childhood self could see the bigger picture we were heading towards. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Caroline. So actually one of the first times that I got to visit DAAP and learn about the industrial design program, I watched these very presentations by the class of 2016, and I was absolutely amazed by their stories and work. So needless to say, I'm extremely honored to be speaking to you today, and I'm really proud of all of my fellow classmates and presenters. So I was a really creative kid growing up, and I loved to learn new crafts and hobbies. And a lot of this creativity was fostered through my grade school education at Spring Garden Waldorf School. Waldorf School is known for being really well-rounded. It educates students intellectually through their head, physically through their hands, and then socially through their hearts. And that's something that I've carried with me, and that's shaped my life and shaped the last 5 years at DAAP as I've become a designer. So over these last 5 years at DAAP, I've learned a lot about becoming a well-rounded designer, and tonight I'd like to share some of my key learnings in the pursuit of that practice. First, you have to be endlessly curious. You have to be open-minded and ready to learn new skills, methodologies, industries. I learned this through all of my co-ops, which each led me in vastly different directions. Each one brought the new challenge of different clients and product spaces to learn in. But I discovered the value of my curiosity the most during my 2 co-ops at M3 Design. One of the projects we worked on was Home Run Dugout, which is an immersive batting bay. And I specifically worked on the user interfaces in this augmented reality experience. Throughout this whole project, I used my curiosity. I learned to develop information hierarchies and coordinate information across multiple displays in the experience. I dove into the user journey and immersed myself in the user's needs and desires. I learned how to create an interactive prototype and do effective user testing to promote functionality in the product. And I developed the style guide that informed the rules and structure of the Home Run Dugout brand. My curiosity and my willingness to learn all of these different types of skills alongside the full-time designers at M3 allowed me to take a leading role as a young student in the final build-out of this interface that helps to lead users through the entire gameplay experience at Home Run Dugout. It was a really fun project to complete as well. The second learning is that doing is the greatest way of learning. So AKA prototype early and often. And nothing has taught me more about the value of prototyping than my experience in Section 1, which is a collaborative studio here at DAAP. In 2019, our section was tasked with working with 9 different Cincinnati manufacturers who each specialize in unique materials and processes. And we use those to be inspired to create home goods that highlight those unique properties and materials. My team specifically worked with King Bag Manufacturing Company, whose primary material is industrial vinyl and whose primary product is large jet engine covers. So because their products are so huge, they yield a lot of scrap each week. And that was something that we were able to use in our project. And since we had this theme of upcycling and sustainability, and because of the waterproof properties of vinyl, we were inspired to create and build out a hydroponic plant growing system for the home gardening purpose. So every single design decision that my teammates and I made was based on our prototyping and material experimentation. We could sketch all we wanted to about how we wanted our hydroponic system to look, but nothing was valid until we proved it out in the material. We built the entire system one successful experimentation at a time. We used everything from hair straighteners to panini presses to perfect our vinyl heat welding process to create a watertight seal in our plant growing pockets. And we used King Bag's industrial grommeting machine to create connecting points across the system. When the system could successfully grow plants using just water and nutrients and not leak all over the floor of our studio, we were able to bring it to the International Contemporary Furniture Fair and display it with the rest of the Section 1 home goods. And then the last learning that I want to talk about today is that a healthy community is made up of many nurtured individuals. So I spent 8 years at a Waldorf school in a close-knit community with my classmates and teacher, learning to collaborate and to have respect and empathy for those around me. And the importance of community in my life has only grown throughout my time at DAAP and even in this final year of virtual school. Last summer, in our first semester of virtual learning, my studio team members and I came together to enhance community through food. As we work to strengthen the communities around our users, we actually strengthened our own as well, and we were really able to support each other through the isolation of virtual learning. So we found a problem with eating in America. Most Americans seek convenience, and so they multitask, they drive, they look at their phones, they work while they eat. This and the fad diet culture in America creates an extremely unhealthy relationship to food. But there's an opportunity in the space of mindfulness and intuitive eating, as there's a growing interest in this among consumers. So we created a brand called Nomnu, whose goal is to reimagine mealtime experiences in a way that really reconnects us to the food that we eat. And in the ideation phase, I focused mostly on how we could bring those mindful eating practices to work. The end result was a lunchbox that solved for the unique needs of the lunch break. The carrying sleeve and the light create a microenvironment within the larger office space that helps to focus the user on their mealtime. The nesting containers and hidden tech help the user to provide a ritual of setup and cleanup, and it also guides the user through the mealtime. Each utensil is equipped with a sensor that tracks how quickly you're eating, and then a haptic motor that gives subtle feedback if you might be eating too quickly. The modular system accounts for both the social aspects of an office lunch break, but also the intrinsic aspects of eating mindfully. So it's the perfect balance between a mindful and a social experience, which is all to create a better culture around eating at work. So I believe that a good designer works with their head, their hands, and their heart. I believe that you should always be curious and open-minded. You should work with your hands to prototype and find solutions. But most importantly, you should focus on those around you. Who's on your team? Whose lives can you improve? Whose experiences can you leverage? Your work with your head and your heart and your hands should always have the foundation in your heart. Thank you.
Well, first of all, hi everyone. I'm Connor Adams. First of all, I'm really honored to sit here and present to you guys today. This is a really awesome opportunity, and to get the chance to talk alongside these 7 other awesome designers and get to represent the DAAP ID program. For this presentation, I really wanted to take the opportunity to reflect on kind of the 2 main constants that I've had throughout my college career and how those have made me the designer that I am today. those being change and community. I'm no stranger to change. This was a gift my father gave me before going off to college. I grew up in a military household, so I was pretty used to moving around constantly. These were like all the different places I lived before I came to college, but definitely wasn't ready for the shock of showing up to the DAAP ID program and having to consistently travel across the country every few months. I had the opportunity to work at 5 very different places and had 5 very unique and just equally awesome experiences as part of a DAAP program here. And throughout all of those, one key factor to all of it has been the community around me, the people and friends that I met along the way, as well as the people that consistently helped me throughout my journey. So starting off, I wanted to kind of highlight kind of one of the pivotal moments of me kind of starting out as a designer, and that was just initially, how can I affect change? And this started on my second co-op at Milwaukee Tool, tasked with redesigning this floodlight here, the HP floodlight. Through talking with tradespeople, engineering, and brand, I was able to break apart and dissect this light to start to understand the components, how they worked, and how I could actually approach this problem, which resulted in 3 focused objectives, where I really wanted to create something that was job site mobile, able to move around and quickly work with the construction worker on the job site, brutally understood to where this thing made sense and did its job and spoke to the fact that it did its job really well, as well as hitting a compact story of fitting all of these engineering components into as small of a design as possible, which resulted in a floodlight that was 25% smaller than the original, something that really evolves the presentation of the floodlight to present its true function, which is to be the best floodlight on the market. Something that was designed to move around the job site with a revised single handle to quickly be portable as the construction worker goes throughout their day. And then repositioning the UI for ease of use. So this is something I'm super proud of, finally after 2 years of actually getting released on the market to a ton of commercial success, and really kind of marked a position in my journey as a designer to push me to continue toward really focusing on the user and understanding what they need, which lands me on the second project that I want to talk about today, where I kind of began my journey toward evolving my design toward the relationship that it has with the user, starting where most of my co-op started off at, which is at the front door of IKEA, where I challenged myself with how useful that furniture really is, and how it has a ton of difficulty once you have it and use it. It doesn't go with you. It's a one and done kind of piece of trash, and I wanted to evolve that idea, as well as evolve the idea of a chair and how it lives within a space. Looking at how young millennials actually use their chair, and how it can live in different sections of the home while still feeling at home within the different spaces. So as part of this, I kind of separated this into 3 goals. The first one being that it has to work like an IKEA chair, being flat packed, but actually then deconstruct back into that flat pack to go with you as you go. Something that actually has a ton of longevity, and then is casual within your home, something that fits within whatever space your life eventually leads into, which started off with a ton of dirty sketching, a ton of little 8th scale models, a full scale looks like model to then actually test how the thing sat and to really understood how it worked, where I then got the chance to bring in my community that was continuing to grow around my education in Cincinnati, to how to actually manufacture this, learning how to form the wood to create the seat, learning with this guy, this awesome HA Pate, where we got to learn how to like bend metal and form the legs and the rest of the chair, which resulted in something that was actually able to be successfully flat packed and able to be easily instructed to a user really quickly with how it's constructed and deconstructed, something that performed really well due to all these people that were able to help me, and something that performed its IKEA functions of being able to quickly come apart and go back together, and something that was clean and aesthetic that went with you wherever you went. And to round out my different projects that I'd like to showcase, I wanted to show something that really involved the people around me and how important they were to my journey as a designer. In a time when I can't be with all of these influential people, this is a quick snapshot of my class and how powerful they've been in my journey. And this started off in the pandemic city, where it was increasingly difficult to get around, where I was actually able to go in and dive into that landscape with a very people-focused approach in interviewing people, learning their journeys, and understanding the landscape based off a ton of secondary research, landing me on a ton of awesome insights on where people go, as well as how mobility can be effective within that city, and especially within their specific communities, which pushed me to discover this awesome idea of micromobility and how this is actually going to take over the city through bikes and scooters and boards, as well as then incorporating in all of this user community insight that I gained about how I can increase the micromobility's rider safety, its efficiency, as well as having more fun with people through this idea of flocking, where people are able to join up along their route and ride together to make it more safe and more fun, which then took the form of how do you represent this idea with a ton of ideation, form development, and finally resulting in this idea of a connected board, something that connects back to your phone. We're able to input in a route, and the board itself is going to signal to you where you need to turn and where you need to go to successfully complete that route, which is going to encourage you to join up with other people. Something that's more portable and more convenient for the average user by adding in mechanisms that lock the wheels and make it more understood for a casual user, as well as just making it a fun experience. Flocking with other people would be a really fun and great idea, as well as this really new, a new kind of way to ride your connected board. But then my community struck again, and talking with old mentors and getting feedback, where I was really pushed by them to refocus on the person that I was designing for originally, which was that community and that idea of flocking. Which is where my capstone is currently going, is reimagining and re-understanding this idea of flock mobility and how people can get around, which is hopefully going to result in some sort of communication device. So to wrap this all up, if I could leave you all with a few of the lessons that I've learned throughout my college career, it's that to always be ready to grow and change as a designer, to build meaningful change that focuses on a person. And then I think the best one here is that conversations are my favorite design tool to learn and grow, and they've just really been the keystone to my experience at DAAP. Thank you all for your time.
Hi everyone, my name is Hunter Elmore. I'm an industrial design student here at UC DAAP. As a kid, I had a lot of creative energy and I didn't know what to do with it until I discovered drawing at around the age of 12. And from then on, everywhere I went, I had a pen or a pencil with me, and I started really taking it seriously. I knew it's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create, but I didn't know of any career paths other than being a starving artist, basically. So I was shoehorned into career paths like being an engineer or being a doctor even, until I was all the way up in my senior year of high school, and I was looking at what I wanted to do. And my art teacher convinced me to go to Cleveland Institute of Art and try industrial design. And I remember thinking that the name itself sounded kind of boring, but I'll try it. And I'm so glad I did, because I absolutely loved it. And the next year I came to University of Cincinnati, and I came here for one big reason, and that's the co-op program. So over the past 5 years, I've worked for 5 semesters professionally, the first one being in NERF, the next 2 at Ethicon, the 4th at Tangent, which is a consultancy in Chicago, and the last one at Ford. During that time, I've had a lot of products make it on market, like these NERF Fortnite micro shots that I worked on as pretty much the sole designer, or Project Velos, where I was working on a bigger team, which is a surgical knee replacement robot through Ethicon. And I was working on everything from sketching, ideation, and blue sky ideation to CAD modeling of the robot, of the arrays, of the carts. Every part of that project I had a hand in. And I couldn't be more proud now that it's on market. In terms of what I work on during my time at school, I tend to focus a lot on mobility solutions in the transportation design curriculum, designing entire systems and how they would work in the future, and really taking into account new tools of the trade like virtual reality and these usability studies that can be completed in the virtual reality space. I've even had my work featured through sponsor studios like this one with Hankook, where we were focused on the future of urban mobility, and my work was selected to be featured as kind of the showcase in this animation that they developed based on that studio class. And my design work was focused a lot on modularity and making sure that everything is sustainable and serviceable in a constant use system, keeping those products on the road more often and making them more sustainable for the future. So again, had a lot of fun working on this. But what I really want to talk about is a couple core values and a couple projects that align with them that make me who I am as a designer. And the first one shouldn't be very divisive. It's that collaboration is key. And a good example of this is a project I worked on after the onset of COVID with my classmates Matt Whitby, Sun Huang, and James Rucker, where we were focused on hygienic practices in hospitals and how they're being changed via COVID, and how we can use robotic systems to redesign the room turnover process and make it more efficient and safe. So we started traditionally, and we worked with nurses, spoke with them directly to define pre-COVID journey maps and post-COVID journey maps of cleaning these rooms. And then from there, I kind of distilled down the opportunity points and worked on my portion of the group project, which was designing the main robotic component. So I did traditional 2D sketching before midterm to develop out different options and different iterations, speaking with nurses and figuring out what would work best for them and what would actually help them in their workflows, to ultimately come to the Honest Robotics HS1 robot, which is a robotic fleet system that facilitates and augments nurses rather than replacing them to make them more effective and make their processes COVID compliant. So the way it works is the nurse is wearing a set of augmented reality glasses. As they're cleaning the room, as they traditionally would, they're creating a 3D map for the robot to then go through and follow with secondary methods of environmental sanitation like UV sanitation and electrostatic fogging to completely recoat all of those existing areas that have already been cleaned once as a form to limit the hospital-acquired infection rates and limit liability moving on. It uses, like I said before, UV sanitation not only on the top, but also on the bottom, which is a huge value add in the industry because nothing on the market is currently doing that to increase line of sight for the UV sanitation. And putting the electrostatic fogging in the same robot is a really big innovation in the industry. But developed everything from the internals to the drivetrains and collaborated not just with my classmates, but also with corporate partners like Allied Bioscience, who developed a formula called SurfaceWise 2, which kills 99% of virus and bacteria for up to 90 days after its initial use. So like I said, we spoke with their board of directors and make sure we were using their product as efficiently as possible, collaborating with them as well as with ourselves. All this to develop a fleet robotic system that takes problems that we're seeing today with COVID and directly addresses them and makes the future a bit brighter and a bit less infectious. But even worked with my classmate Matt Whitby, who's a wizard in virtual reality, to develop out an entire virtual reality experience where you can go in and feel and operate the entire system as a usability study so we can get feedback from our users and make sure that everything makes sense. The second core value I want to talk about is starting with a person, not a persona. And a good example of this is my current capstone, which I call Eclipse. And it all started with my cousin. 25 years ago, he lost his arm. And although he owns a prosthesis, he doesn't use it. He's one of a lot of people who have experienced amputations, but he's definitely not the only one rejecting his prosthesis. In fact, the rates can be extremely high depending on the demographic. So I asked the question, how is that product failing the user and how can I change that? So I went through, I defined the user, and then I actually went through online and made contact with about 60 of these target users and talked them through virtual interviews to distill down insights, not just through the physiological side of wearing a prosthesis, but through the social and psychological sides as well. I did my homework with user-facing services, talked with them and corporate manufacturers, all to develop emerging technologies and methodologies, seeing what the future of the industry holds so that my future concept can be a bit more informed. I developed product needs and even got through to the aesthetic side of it and defining out these mood boards via the users. I had card sorting and sent these card sorting surveys to 60 of my users to find out what they wanted their prosthesis to look like, not what I wanted it to look like as someone who's not necessarily a key role in that system. From there, I did 2D design and traditional sketching of 2D sketching of the exterior of the hand, of the internals. Every part of it I was working on designing and wanted to make sure that it all made sense and worked. I did the traditional workflows of 2D sketching to 2D sketch rendering before getting into new, more advanced workflows like 3D ideation and programs like Gravity Sketch, which I'm a huge proponent of and makes up a big part of who I am as a designer. I think it's a real key point in what the future of design is going to become. But all of this ultimately spearheaded on the exterior direction and internals direction, which the entire time I was validating and verifying all of my design decisions with my users and making sure that they have a key role in the design of this product. I also worked with robotics engineers and people that I knew through Ethicon to develop out the internals and make sure that everything worked and it all made sense and was feasible from a corporate manufacturing perspective. But the third project I want to talk about is really about building the future. And we can build the future as designers through products, and we can build the future as people through other people. And so during my time at UC, I've had 2 years as president of a group called Design in Mind. And this was a student group started by Wyeth Augustine Marcel in 2017 as his capstone. And what it does is we connect University of Cincinnati art and design students with Cincinnati public school K-6 art classrooms to facilitate their education and teach them about opportunities in art and design. So basically giving these kids what I never had. And looking back at it now, I'm so glad that this has become a part of who I am, because if I hadn't found design, I have no idea what I'd be doing, and it's really scary to think about. So being that change that you want to see in the world is a big part of my overall outlook. But during 1 year while I was president, we impacted over 1,600 students with 130 volunteers from UC, donating over 2,000 hours of community service. So to sum it all up, design is a way for a kid like me or the kids we work with in Design in Mind. It's a way for anyone really to have a say not only in their own future, but in a bigger future, whether making that future a little bit more playful or having a crazy idea for what it could one day become, whether it's giving people back their functionality and rebuilding lives through one-time procedures or through constant use products. Design is the ability to take problems from today and develop solutions for tomorrow. And I think with all the problems that we've all experienced over the past year, we can agree we need a bit more of that right now. So again, my name's Hunter Elmore. I'm an industrial designer. I'm proud to be one, and I'm really looking forward to building the future with all of you. So thank you.
All right, how's it going, everyone? First, I want to say thank you to all the judges for coming out and seeing some of this amazing work from me and my fellow classmates. So my name is Jacob Schlater, and this is a little bit about how I innovate through design and through being creative in my everyday life. So growing up, I've always lived in a small town called Hillsboro, Ohio, and couldn't find any good pictures of the town online. So instead, here's our claim to fame. It's the largest horseshoe crab in the world. If it seems random, that's because it is. My dad was a game warden, and my mom stayed at home to teach the kids. I gave my mom her third redheaded child, which of course raised some questions and concerns with my father. But my life growing up was a lot different than the kids around me. Instead of watching TV, I spent my days playing in creeks and picking flowers. I had to really learn how to play and get creative with the objects around me. So my first project, I'd like to talk about how I continue to do that. These are my one-day builds. All of these builds are created using materials that I've scavenged, like this backpack I made out of an old Dish Network vinyl sign. I found that having these material strengths really allows me to get creative with my work and come up with solutions that I never would have imagined elsewhere. But the most important value through all of this that I've learned is the importance of being creative every day and really exercising these creativity and innovation muscles. So I try and be creative as often as I can. So my next prompt for one of these builds is, how can I use innovation to improve my presentation for the IDSA Student Merit Awards? Well, I could bribe all of you guys, the judges, but I don't have anything of value to offer. I could display my notes behind my laptop, but this just feels a bit dishonest. Feels like I'm kind of cheating. But it could be better if I display my notes right on the screen, but it's kind of weird. I might have to do some tweaking to it. And this is where I made the connection between this and an old game called Cranium Could Do. See, Cranium Could Do is interesting because they show you the answer right on the card, but you need special decoder glasses to see it. So if I can recreate this format, I can put my notes right on the screen, and all I need to do is create the decoder. So I went about to make this. I found some clear TPU plastic from the trash and dyed it red using some dye I had lying around. Then I sanded down some colored pencils and used them as the frame for the glasses. I hope you guys don't mind if I wear these for the rest of the presentation. Thinking differently will always lead to unique solutions, and I believe that real innovation comes from seeing problems that others overlook. Another thing that helps me see life differently are all of these amazing experiences that I've been lucky enough to be a part of. Through these awesome co-ops that DAAP has allowed me to go on, I've gotten to spend a lot of time living on the West Coast, and I've always embraced the road trips to and from these new living arrangements. I got to summit Mount St. Helens in Washington, sit in ancient healing caves in Sedona, Arizona. I ran a marathon in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've had my work shown in a fashion show here in Cincinnati. I've had a lot of failures along this journey, but I've found that every time I fail, it's the people around me that lift me back up. The people that have guided me through this journey have always helped me grow the most. I've had close relationships with amazing mentors at every place that I've worked. I've had amazing co-ops, and through some of these, I've even gotten to have 2 shoes produced. But out of all these mentors and amazing co-ops, there's one that stands out among the rest. That was my mentor at Under Armour, Justin Howe, which brings me to my second value, which is mentorship. Justin Howe was the VP of footwear design at Under Armour. He was very generous with his time, and we had some amazing conversations. Justin taught me to question absolutely everything, to channel down your inspiration, and to prioritize telling the story above all else. So I'll talk about my work at Under Armour in the terms of Justin's philosophies. Question everything, even if the answer seems obvious. Why is footwear sizing so hard? Why can't shoes just follow small, medium, large sizing like clothing? It seems obvious. But when you dive deeper, you can find new solutions. So I came up with this concept to have the sole of the shoe as a series of foam pods that are independently attached to the sock-like upper. This would provide protection under the foot while still allowing the shoe to expand and contract. Think hospital socks, but make them performance. Channel your inspiration. I was inspired in this project by the BMW Next 100 concept car. This car shows flexibility in the last place you would expect. I wanted to translate this property into the sole of the shoe. All of my sketches for the project centralized around this inspiration and honed my idea. Finally, tell the story. This is all about accurate communication of the idea and why the consumer should care. I started under the foot, describing where the pods would go and why, based off the geometry of the foot. Next, I moved outward, showing systematically how all of the components would overlap one another to create this new shoe. The final renders of what the shoe would look like on and off the foot still weren't enough though. The value proposition for this shoe was the small, medium, large sizing. It was all about the sensation. So I made a prototype for it, one that was successfully tested by a size 7 and a size 12. I'll never forget the look on Justin's face when he put them on. Question everything. This had given birth to a totally new footwear sensation just by questioning things. This really resonated with me too, because I was always the kid that was really different. I was into origami, puzzles, art, not normal things for a small town kid. I resented being the odd one out, but studying design has taught me that these differences are actually my strongest tools as a designer. So the final lesson I'll leave you with is to really lean into what makes you different. Really truly appreciate your differences because they're powerful tools. My unique perspective and upbringing has helped me find success co-creating a sustainable clothing brand. About a year ago, a friend and I started the brand Germ because we noticed a gap in the market that aligned with our interests. See, the problem was that Gen Z is consuming clothing that looks like this. It's hip, graphic-heavy streetwear styles. But all of the top sustainable clothing brands look like this. They're soft and minimal. Even though sustainability is a major point of emphasis for the youngest generation, they're simply not being catered to. Sustainability is really cool, but it's just not being portrayed that way. So we started to learn how to create not just a brand, but a community that celebrates sustainability, creativity, and optimism. We dreamed up an iconic mask to represent this movement, something like a guardian for the environment. We built a website to begin building this culture. For this, in addition to selling our products, we show our process, highlight other small creators, and include other interesting features like a Spotify channel. To keep our designs consistent, we wrote a book with over 100 pages of detailed branding guidelines outlining everything from logo area of isolation to tone of voice and photography and videography styles. We define ourselves as a youthful take on fashion, sustainability, and community. It hasn't been easy though. Every day has been a huge learning process. We had to teach ourselves how to sew, dye, pattern, and screen print, as well as how to run every part of a business, from social media marketing to consumer relations. But in the end, it's been one of the best experiences of my life. I have so much fun doing it. We've sold clothing online, and we're very successful selling in person at local trade shows. We've started planning an independent fashion show to showcase our work, and The future of this is me continuing to work on it after graduation. So how do I recommend finding new spaces for innovation? Create something new every single day, constantly explore. Always be open to giving and receiving mentorship, and lean into your differences. Use them to find different solutions that others couldn't even see. So are these stupid glasses even a good idea? Honestly, no, they're not. But there's no innovation and creativity without failure, period. And at the end of the day, I had a ton of fun making them, which is one of my biggest philosophies in design. Have fun with all of your endeavors, and every failure will become a success. Thanks, everyone.
So hi everyone, it's great to be here representing the UCID class of 2021. I'm Mick, and my path to and through UCID is something I'm really thankful for. Growing up as a kid, I was crazy energetic and probably a bit annoying. I watched a lot of action movies and always thought I would be a firefighter or a doctor or a crime sleuth when I grew up. But then I became an athlete and I played soccer and ran cross country. I was pretty good at it, so I almost went to a small private school in Central Ohio to study and run cross country. But thankfully, my mom and grandpa just had the idea that I should give UC a chance. And so I took some engineering tours, hated them. And then my grandpa took me on a tour of DAAP industrial design. I loved it. I thought it was the perfect fit for me. My grandpa was influential in my decision to attend DAAP. He worked at Procter & Gamble in product development. But the deciding factor in attending DAAP ID for me was that I thought I could help the Huntington's disease community through design. My dad has Huntington's disease and it's genetic, so that's always put a ton of pressure on me to do something really meaningful with my life. Throughout my ID journey, I've co-opted at 4 different companies, and I want to talk about how each one of those experiences as a whole enabled me to do something in my personal life that inspired my design journey. So first I moved to LA to work at Munchkin, where I spent a lot of time designing bath toys. You can see that one of my really crude thumbnail sketches that I did, I think on my very last day there, even made it to market, which is really awesome. LA was really uncomfortable for me, but I grew a lot as a designer at Munchkin and gained confidence in trying new things. And one time I took a pottery class. This opened a whole new world for me because I discovered that I loved it. And so I added a fine arts minor to my study and tried to concentrate it in ceramics. My 2 worlds of ceramics and industrial design collided during the ESME project with Alicia Kozlowski. In this project, we really wanted to understand why essential oils, which are seemingly so precious, are being diffused in cheap plastic vessels. So we asked about 50 people about their essential oil experience and discovered that they felt the same. We started exploring a better way to do this through form development and also developed a killer brand experience to go along with it. Eventually, through iteration, we discovered lava rock diffusion, and that was our big differentiator. Our final design was something brand new to the essential oil community in form, but familiar in diffusion delivery. We manufactured it all ourselves. It was really, really intensive, from plaster mold design to casting and glaze formulation from scratch. We made about 25 total ESME essential kits, and we built our brand and promoted it through social media. And people loved our product. We sold out at the homegrown pop-up, and sometimes people message me, like on Instagram, asking if I even have any left to sell. Next, I worked at Owens, Illinois, and most of my time there was spent developing a line of small format wine bottles, which are actually out on the market now, and I earned a couple patents for, which is really cool. But while working at OI and living in Toledo, I adopted 2 cats because they were buy one, get one free. And so that tells you a lot about my personality. Adopting them in my personal life opened me up to the world of pet products, and I wanted to buy an automatic pet feeder. So I benchmarked them like a true designer for myself to buy, and they were not up to par aesthetically. So I took this on as a personal project and redesigned one. I began sketching basic form development, and then I discovered the Wild One brand and felt that this project could be a perfect expansion to their product line. This was really one of the first projects where I understood branding from a product development and a form angle. The final form and CMF of this project is soft and really contemporary, much like the Wild One brand. And I even thought through some of the internal components of what this could look like. It's really, really simple, but one of the best features about this product is that the new concept has a magnet that engages it with an existing Wild One product, kind of creating like a product system. I also developed an interface that allows consumers to feel connected to their device, which in turn helps them feel more connected with their pets because they're learning a lot about their pets' eating habits and they're able to track that. I spent my third co-op at Chamberlain Group in Chicago, where I was first professionally introduced to UX UI. I was able to develop my skills with the NEAU app, which you see here. It was a personal project, but the team at CGI evaluated it and helped me really grow in this sector. My last two co-ops were in Cincinnati at P&G, and everything came full circle for me here with the connection that I had through my grandpa working at P&G. Here I was able to take more of a digital design and strategic brand development role as well. In both of these roles, I was able to become more involved in the Huntington's disease community. And so this is, again, a really full circle thing for me because it was this deciding factor when I entered industrial design. I thought that I could make an impact in the HD community. So what is HD? It's a genetic neurodegenerative disease that causes the progressive breakdown of brain cells. It's like having ALS, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's all at once. So my capstone, HD and Me, is a digital resource for the Huntington's disease community that brings educational and informational resources, emotional support, and community all under one platform and brand. Today, these resources exist on different platforms, and they're not easy to navigate during a time of crisis. So for this project, I began conducting research with 15 face-to-face interviews of various members and stakeholders of the HD community. I used affinity mapping to synthesize my research and understand what kind of opportunities really exist here that I can solve for in this project. Ultimately, users just want to feel like they're supported in their Huntington's disease journey. I developed a persona for the HD and Me user. Ultimately, I'm designing the experience around the at-risk persona because there are nearly 200,000 Americans who are at risk for inheriting the Huntington's disease gene. So here I'm just trying to center my project around what I can make the most impact in. In order to gain a broad sense of empathy and understanding for our user, Ali, I developed the user journey summarizing her experience with HD. I captured her journey through 3 major milestone and phases within her HD journey. The timeline is vague, but her experience is specific because HD affects every single person differently. Next, I created the user flow map for the experience and information that includes an extensive onboarding process where the goal is to get personal and demographic information in order to tailor the experience towards each individual user's HD journey. Currently, I'm in the process of visualizing and prototyping HD and Me. I've done lo-fi sketching, which you can see here. This is a lot like thumbnail sketching in industrial design, so it's nice to be able to make those connections. I've done some mid-fidelity wireframing in 1 round of user testing, and I'm really excited to see what becomes of this project. My journey through the UCID program really did come full circle for me in many ways, and I'm thankful that my studio and co-op experiences gave me the ability to think critically about problems and allowed me to see things through different lenses. By gaining a lot of different design experience, I'm able to see the opportunity of designing for the HD community, what got me interested in industrial design in the first place, through a completely different lens and still understand that even though it's not traditional industrial design, I'm able to still make the biggest impact in the Huntington's disease community. Thank you.
All right. Let me know if you can't see it, but hello everyone. I'm Parth Kashikar, and I am thrilled to be speaking at my laptop screen today. I have a handful of stories that I would like to share with you all, how I got into design, what work I'm most proud of, and at the end, I'll share what I think the most important focus for designers should be. I was born in central India in 1998, but I grew up in Boise, Idaho, the best place on the planet. My family moved here when I was quite young. Growing up, I couldn't conceive of a career in design. My parents were both STEM focused, but they cared a lot about giving me access to a good education. They cared so much, in fact, that in 2010, I started at Boise State. Here's our famous blue turf. I was part-time, and the first class I ever took was Philosophy 101. So you could say from a young age, I was already pretty, what's the word, insufferable. After classes, I would always be excited to go to the Albertsons library on campus because it was the first place that I had free, unmonitored access to high-speed internet. This is where I first learned about Adobe through a website that posted After Effects tutorials. I was blown away that this software could enable such creativity, and I was disappointed that we couldn't afford it. A year later, we visited family in India. I specifically remember this trip because I drank a single glass of tap water and I got so sick for 3 months I genuinely thought that I would die. Toward the end of our trip, my parents took me to a video store to cheer me up, I guess. In a stroke of inspiration, I asked the owner if he had heard of Adobe CS5. 3 hours and 1,000 rupees later, that's $13, he handed me a stack of 10 unmarked disks and told me to turn off my firewall and internet before installing them. I religiously studied Photoshop and After Effects. Access to this expensive software is genuinely the main reason I chose to pursue design in college. I've completed many studios at UC, and this is the story of the project that I'm most proud of. My area of exploration was tattooing, so I decided to get my first tattoo because empathy is important. Through interviews with artists, apprentices, and customers, I was able to identify many pain points. However, I was also becoming increasingly interested in the tradition of prison tattooing. It isn't permitted in the United States, but prison tattooing is ubiquitous. Prisoners don't have access to machines or ink, so they make do with dangerous DIY solutions. To understand their experience, I created this machine from scavenged parts and tried my hand at some artwork. This led to an iterative process where I alternated between sketching, low-fidelity modeling, and validation interviews with tattoo artists. Hence the final design, predicated on the evidence-based premise that clean needle and tattooing programs could drastically reduce the spread of blood-borne pathogens in prison. This project presented a new possibility, one where prisoners have access to safe and clean equipment and can complete an apprenticeship to have gainful employment in one of the few fields that doesn't discriminate based on criminal history. The design has a removable motor which reduces weight and noise compared to traditional electromagnetic machines, prevents misuse, and enables cleaning in an autoclave. The all-white exterior communicates a medical feel and naturally displays if the machine is dirty. The threaded cartridge system allows artists to switch between different tips without having to disassemble the machine, and results in a shorter, less dangerous needle. I loved working on this project, but in the end, it is just an academic exercise. As an industrial designer, I wanted my work to go to market, so I would like to talk about the commercial product that I'm most proud of. Like many of you, I've had some co-ops, 5 different ones, each one slightly larger than the last, because I'm a bit of an industrial design gold digger. Figuring out which product I'm most proud of was quite easy since I only have the one, but it happens to be from Elysian, my all-time favorite co-op. Coming to this company, I had just completed my first experience at a great lighting firm. The products rocked, but it was not at all what I was expecting, and at this point, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to stay in industrial design. I was especially apprehensive because I knew Elysian as the doorknob company, and I did not want to design doorknobs. But as I got into my projects, I found that I was truly enjoying work every single day, and the reason for this was my fantastic coworkers. I had access to a great community of designers that truly supported me, and more importantly, allowed me to be myself and encouraged all my weird ideas and quirks. Access to such a supportive environment resulted in one of my most productive co-op terms. I had some designs patented, and I was able to work on a truly whimsical product, a motion-sensing doorknob that lights up. The concept may seem simple, but we contended with many challenges, such as how to provide the best interaction for swapping batteries, how to incorporate the Fresnel lens and set the motion sensing at an appropriate distance, and how to manufacture this product with the intricate through-hole pattern. We iterated in CAD as well as through 3D metal and plastic printing. This led to the creation of one of the best named products of all time, the Illuminabi. The name stems from the ancient languages, obviously, and it means illuminated Nabi. As you can see, other people liked it too, because last year it won an IDSA International Design Excellence Award, granted to the lead designer on the project, Ada Watson. The whimsical nature of the design and the delightful name are testimonies to the easygoing creative culture at Elysian. Access to a supportive community can yield great results, and I'm so thankful to my coworkers at Elysian for supporting my most far-out ideas, even if I did get carried away at times. That was the story of a product I'm proud of, but I got into design not for projects and products, but to make an impact. Studies show that the quality of education in Idaho is substandard. This one's my favorite. This is just rude. I don't agree with this at all, unless you're a state representative, in which case this does apply to you. I had always felt like I wanted to improve education in the state that was so meaningful to me. That's why I joined Whenstone, an organization I have been involved with since 2014, first as a volunteer, then an intern, and now an alumni mentor. It is a student-led nonprofit focused on cultivating student leadership through philanthropic projects. When I joined, they had just started Two Birds, a graphic design consultancy that was responsible for generating revenue for the nonprofit. It was there, in the early days of Two Birds, when we had 1 computer and 2 student volunteers, that I first learned about the design thinking process. I applied it to projects like this wayfinding system for the Idaho Botanical Gardens. I took on leadership roles, and our work slowly started to get recognized throughout the state. We broke a world record at one point, and we arranged numerous design thinking events to freely share access to equipment, resources, and opportunities with other Boise students. But ultimately, true impact comes from creating systemic change. And that is why I joined the team responsible for creating the One Stone School, the first and only tuition-free private school in Idaho, enabled by a multi-million-dollar grant from the Albertsons Foundation. Yes, the same Albertsons as the library where I first decided I wanted to pursue design. In the team, I worked on branding the school, developing the interior space we constructed, and creating video and print recruitment collateral. All of this, of course, was enabled by the fantastic mentors and coaches, because I've learned that to make an impact, you need a community behind you. Even just 2 weeks ago, One Stone held their annual fundraising event and raised $200,000 from supporters all across Idaho. Now, as promised, what I think the most important focus for designers should be. Attentive listeners may have heard me mention it roughly 50 times in the presentation, but it is access. The most relevant challenge for designers over the next 50 years. Who has support? Who has resources? Who can use your design and who is not included? What happens when you combine access to education, access to resources, and access to a supportive community can be summed up in this quote from a student at the fundraising event. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm being accepted. One Stone is not a school. It is not a place trying not to be a school or some sort of unique alternative experience. It is a sanctuary. To have played a small role in creating something that means this much to another person is my greatest accomplishment. In DAAP, I've had access to fantastic professors like Antonio, Peter, and many others. I've had access to state-of-the-art design tools for sketching and modeling. I've had access to fantastic motivated peers. And I've been able to develop a lot of work that I'm really proud of. If I may be so bold as to prescribe a lesson from this talk, to all the young designers in the audience, to the professionals and professors, and mostly to the seniors who will be graduating alongside me in May, consider access, how it has affected you, and how you may, in turn, affect others through your work and guidance. My name is Parth Kashikar. Thank you very much.